Fantastic.
All right, so we have the next episode of the Porchlight, and today we are going to be talking with Doreen Yang from Autism New Jersey. Could you tell us what you do with Autism New Jersey?
Absolutely. I am the director of Autism New Jersey's law enforcement initiative. I am retired from the Union County Prosecutor's Office. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled particularly during April Autism Awareness Month to talk about Autism New Jersey's law enforcement initiative.
Okay, fantastic. So we have so many good things to talk about, and we were just talking off camera about all the different initiatives we're doing. And, you know, the start of this, I think, when I started talking about different things we were doing with autism, I had a woman call me, and this was probably 10, 15 years ago, and she said to me, hey, listen, I'm concerned about my child driving, and I don't want my child to be shot. And she came straight up with that. And that really upset me that she would be that concerned, because she had seen some different things on television and saw an incident. This was a long time ago again also, where there was someone having they were on the ground, and the officer for some reason shot that person for whatever reason. They had a knife or whatever it was. It was like a 1 in a million scenario that thank God never happens, but happened. And of course she sees that, and now she's terrified, rightly so, for her kid. So she asked me to stop out there so her child can at least see what it was like to interact with a law enforcement officer, what the situation, and also give our officers exposure to someone with what he was going through. Yes. And differences. So we stopped out there and we met her son, great kid. We had a nice interaction with him, but it was like the door opening to saying, wow, we need to do a lot more with this. Mm-hmm. You know, this is a problem that I want to make sure our officers know what to do, everyone else knows what to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about all these initiatives. We have different things we're going to be looking at, like the Blue Envelope program, the SAFE program, and I'm going to put all these on the screen eventually so we can see them as we're talking about them. Okay? And so, let's talk very briefly. What is autism spectrum disorder?
Well, autism, and again, I'm not a clinician,
right.
but I do have, a great deal of experience with autism and particularly autism training as well for law enforcement. It's a lifelong condition, a neurobiological condition, and the spectrum itself contains a lot of conditions, a wide range of conditions that have certain commonalities. And the commonalities affect interactions socially, include impairments with communication. Frequently, the common thread in autism spectrum disorder is also repetitive behaviors or patterns of life, which can present issues. And there's also some particular processing issues, which then require the individual either to take some additional time before responding. Okay. So it affects all of their social interactions, and many of their behaviors can be misread, which is why we want to raise awareness about autism.
Okay, now why is awareness so important for law enforcement?
Oh, incredibly important. And let me just note that I applaud you for being so proactive as a chief and within your department to see that there was a need to connect the autism and the law enforcement communities. There is a great deal of awareness that needs to be had. We need to make sure that law enforcement officers are aware of who they may encounter. The ratio of prevalence in New Jersey is 1 in 29 8-year-olds will be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which is above the national average of 1 in 34. Research has long shown that autistic individuals will come into contact with law enforcement 7 times more than their neurotypical peers. So any officer is going to encounter an autistic individual. So it's important that they understand certain behaviors and don't misread them. We would love to obviously avoid any confusion at a stop or interaction, any use of force. So it's important that they know how to relate to somebody with autism and understand that that particular interaction, be it a motor vehicle stop, be it just a walking stop, that have a bit more meaningful and patient approach.
Okay.
So it's important to stress autism training for police officers and other first responders, so that
Right.
it's again a safe and positive interaction.
Okay, awesome. Now, what common behaviors do you see that officers may encounter? And I'm just moving a little bit. So I
Absolutely.
can make an adjustment here.
Okay. Some common behaviors which are frequently misread, and I will note that law enforcement officers receive a great deal of training, and a lot of it is to read body language, to read
Okay.
certain situations, and we're not asking them to throw out that training, merely asking them in this situation to enhance their training, right?
Okay.
Because safety of law enforcement and of course the autism community and the community in general is ever paramount. But we're just giving them another tool sort of in their, as cliche as it sounds, in their toolbox to help them in a particular interaction so we're all safe. And some of those behaviors that can be misread is lack of eye contact. So frequently persons with autism do not make eye contact, have some difficulties in that regard. They may not respond immediately to an officer's question. That's because they may need additional processing time to formulate a response. They may engage in certain behaviors such as stimming,
Okay.
which may be a physical movement. It could be a hand flapping, it could be rocking, and it's a way for them as an individual to sort of like regulate themselves.
Self-soothe, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's.
Self-soothe.
I know that the stimming is big. We talk
Yes.
about that quite often.
Yes.
Like when we put together the safe brochure, we talk about okay, if they're in that where they're going to stim now, and what is a way they can self-soothe, so we can, because is everyone different in how they self-soothe?
Everyone is different,
Okay.
and there's a famous quote out there that says, once you've met an autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Because, while again, there are some commonalities, a lot of the behaviors are different, and
Yeah.
just the same with stimming. The stimming conduct could be different as well, so it's important to allow them to continue to stim because it is a self-soothing mechanism. And again, police are trained to look for dangerous situations, furtive movements, and perhaps if they recognize certain behaviors, they won't misread it or misinterpret it as lack of respect for authority, non-compliance with instructions. Unfortunately, many behaviors are confused for intoxication.
Right.
And we want to be able to educate officers that there are different approaches to take in these situations.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I know we that's why a lot of these programs we put together, and I know with, we're going to talk about, which we can also bring up too, is that, we have these little stickers that we're going to also put on the screen so you can look at. And, it's a good place to jump into. Like you're saying, how do I know when I approach someone and I'm up in the car now, as that person, as a law enforcement officer, immediately I'm thinking threat. Right. That's always first in our mind because we live it every single day. It's funny because, and it's not funny, but where I tell people, well, in your job as a accountant or as a doctor or what percentage chance is it that one of your patients or people you work with or people that are your customers, what percentage chance is that person may want to kill you?
Right.
And people look at you like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but that's our life every day. We know going out here that when I kiss my wife goodbye and my dogs and my kids, that I may not come home because there is a good percentage in there. It may not be high, it may be very low, but there's a percentage somebody doesn't want me to come home that day. So our immediate first thought is danger, right? But what's nice about these little stickers that we tell people to put on cars and to put in their homes is that it's letting officers know, first of all, because it is something recognizable that they can see as they walk up to the window of the car and they say, uh-oh, here's a sticker. And the sticker has the puzzle piece logo, which lets us know that, someone in here, this is a secure first encounter, could be a first encounter. and it's letting people know that kids with any type of special needs, to keep them safe. And it says right on here. So you don't even have to be educated in it, even though every one of our officers goes through the training. I may resist help. I may not respond. I may be nonverbal. I may try to run away. I may be unaware of danger. Bright lights and loud noises upset me.
Yes. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is another commonality, is sensory overload.
Okay.
And being triggered by certain sensory effects, such as lights and sirens, right? So people frequently, lights and sirens. I myself, if I were to be stopped by law enforcement, I get upset, right? My heart's pounding,
right.
I'm shaking, knowing I didn't do anything wrong. Well,
yeah.
I hopefully,
yeah.
I still am incredibly nervous, and I'm in a very agitated state, and I might even be shaking. So can you imagine if you have neurodivergency and you have sensory overstimulation, how frightening that moment can be. And so to be able to calm that individual, allow them to self-soothe, give them as much information about law enforcement as possible, and then also do the same for law enforcement. Again, not asking them to throw their training out the window. No. Safety, their safety is paramount. It's incredibly important, and we want to ensure that that's the same for the autism community. So to create that, awareness on both sides and bring them together through something like a decal, right?
Yeah.
The decal is a phenomenal idea. It's an immediate visual cue to an officer approaching either a motor vehicle or a home that, again, this is going to require a different approach.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. That's a great point, because I think that's where we run into that problem, is with the sensory overload.
Yes.
Right? Because we're coming in hot, and we're, letting everybody know, like, this person's not pulling over, so they're making a decision. So now what do? We turn those lights on. We turn the siren on. It's extremely loud. I can't tell you how many times that, I've driven past my son who I've hit the chirp the siren on to make him jump. Like I do it to my wife. I do it to my son. You do it to everyone. So, yeah, it makes, on a good day, anyone jump.
Absolutely.
So now if you have a sensory issue where that loud noise bothers you, now you're going through the roof.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm so glad that we're able to hopefully educate people on this, and that we can do more with that.
Yeah, we really encourage, families and self-advocates to take advantage of autism-friendly practices like the decal.
Okay.
So incredibly important. And there are so many other autism-friendly practices that I'm very happy to say that Mercer County is so proactive with. There are so many police departments within Mercer County who, again, sort of like, in the absence of perhaps other, larger programs, did it on their own. You really, all of your municipal departments were at the forefront of this. And thankfully, the county law enforcement agencies have also come to adopt many of these programs as well. So we are, very happy to say that it's spreading like wildfire, these autism-friendly practices throughout the state. And I know you have one of those very autism-friendly practices right in front of you, the Blue Envelope.
Yes, so the Blue Envelope program. Now, the prosecutor's office, Mercer County Prosecutor's Office, put a lot of time into this, working with us to get it going. They got the program off the ground, and every agency has their own little program, little logo, and it works the same way as our stickers. So, the individual who is driving the car puts their information into the Blue Envelope. And we know when we get this envelope, it says, important vehicle papers you need to put in here: driver's license, registration, insurance card, emergency contact. Yes. Always fantastic information. But the card is excellent because it also talks about what the driver is on the autism spectrum. What a great piece of information. First off, so I'm pulling this car over. I think something's wrong. I think something's weird. What's he doing? Has he been smoking something? Right. Is he drinking? Just like you said, right? Yes. My first things are, why is this person acting this way? Right? And then I get this.
Right.
Boom, right away. I know as soon as this envelope comes out, because I've been trained on it, we've all been trained on it, boom, okay, I can relax. Now I can work on the most important thing, de-escalating that person.
Absolutely.
Now I'm like, oh, okay. Now my goal is, how do I make this person comfortable? Let's make this stop enjoyable for the person. I hate to say, like, it sounds weird to say make a traffic stop enjoyable.
No,
but,
I applaud that.
You know, but
I wish I had, enjoyable motor vehicle stops. I think that is a wonderful way to look at it, because it's a touch point, right, with the community.
Right.
It's an opportunity to educate and to connect, and to let them know that we do have allies in law enforcement, and they're aware, they're educated, they're trained, and they're using the very tools that the autism community has asked for. So
Right.
It's all about safety.
Right. And what's nice is, like, I don't even have to remember all my training, because I can look at the envelope and it
Yes.
says, first thing it says, driver may exhibit signs of anxiety due to bright lights and noises like your radio.
Right.
We forget too, we've got this loud radio. A lot of the officers use earpieces now, so it's going into their ear, but the ones that don't, that radio is blasting right next to you. So imagine you're right next to the individual's ear, and you're blasting that information. May display repetitive body movements, which we're talking about self-soothing, right? And that should be a clue to the officer when they start to see that self-soothing, that, hey, okay, I'm getting more and more examples of, this is an individual that I need to help relax and get them under control, and find out why let them know why I pulled them over. Who can I reach out to? Who can I talk to? Allow the driver extra time to respond. Speak clearly, and simplistic explanations. It's just very basic stuff. Clearly tell the driver when the stop is over and they can leave. So again, because they're waiting for commands, or waiting for directions, right? They're very good. People are very good at following directions.
Yes.
I think we should do that in every car stop. This is good advice for all our car stops.
Yeah, even new drivers.
Yeah, but all our officers know. I tell every one of them, and they all know it. I have to tell you, we have some of the most phenomenal officers on the planet. I mean, I'm biased because I work with all of them, but I see what they do every day, and they genuinely care. I can tell you without a doubt, the amount of times I get feedback from the public telling me every single day, well, this officer helped me change a tire. This officer came out and talked to me. It was fantastic. A family member passed away, and they were there, and they were soothing, and they were wonderful. I mean, so I am blessed with an awesome department. And I got to tell you, I've talked to every single one of them, and I tell them, you need to make the situation better. I don't care what it is. When you actively show up, your job is to leave it better than when you showed up.
Yes.
No matter what it is. Even if you're arresting somebody for domestic violence, you need to leave that situation better.
Yes.
Which, taking the person out of the situation makes it better, but you need to do it with a calm, authoritative voice and a caring personality. And I don't have to remind these guys and girls that. They do it. And that's what these car stops are about. Any car stop's about.
Yes, that's incredibly sage advice that you have given them. You want to connect with your community. You want to have a good and positive relationship with that community at large, and then also your special needs community, because they may have needs that are different than the population in general. And I think it's wonderful to be so inclusive in your community programs. Blue envelope, again, immediate visual cue. Once again, it's that if you have that training, you have that program in place. It's, I think, a wonderful mechanism to create that positive interaction. And, there are studies that suggest that if an autistic individual has an interaction with law enforcement, their first interaction, and it is a negative one, stay with them. So that's why it's so important to have community outreach units, to reach out to the community, special needs and autism, and to have a positive interaction. It goes a long way for both the autistic self-advocate, the autistic driver, and the family members and those who support them. I would also note that with the Blue Envelope, we've seen a lot of success with an expansion of the program so that it's not just for drivers. So we're also encouraging some law enforcement departments to consider, if you have an occupant in the vehicle who is on the spectrum, that they may also react when there's a motor vehicle stop. So the neurotypical driver can also utilize, in some situations, the blue envelope to immediately alert the officer who's approaching the vehicle and may see someone, sort of overreacting in the vehicle, an occupant, so that they don't think that, oh, this driver's in danger, there's something going on, this is a domestic violence, this is, a bad situation. So we have encouraged, if some
that's a great
neurotypical
idea.
drivers would like to use it for an autistic occupant within their vehicle. Again,
Or parents who can use it when their kids
Yes.
in the vehicle, right? Because if I'm walking up to the car and I see in the back seat somebody
Yes.
going, with all kinds of hand movements and other stuff, I'm like, whoa, what's going on back here? Especially if it's someone who is considered an adult.
Yes.
I've seen 12-year-olds that, I remember my 12-year-old being this tall, and I've seen some 12-year-olds that are taller than me, and I'm like, wow. So to me, that's an adult threat, if somebody's doing all kinds of stuff in the back, and I'm like, wow. So that's a great point. Have this no matter what. If you have someone who you believe will benefit from it, no matter what, and we would appreciate it, So the more information you give me or I see visually right away, the less worried I'm going to be about that car stop, and I can start to relax and then help that person get through it.
Yeah, it's all about sharing critical information. There's a saying, and it's rather blunt, but it's really an important saying, and it's some law enforcement officers say, meet us before you need us.
Yeah.
And that's blunt, right? Yeah. But it's the truth. So that's why we also encourage a lot of connection between law enforcement and families or autism self-advocates. Home visits, have them come down to the department, familiarize themselves with law enforcement officers so that they see your uniform, they see the badge, and it's not a sensory overload situation. We suggest that, again, community outreach, connect with your local law enforcement. I cannot stress that enough. I can't say enough about how proactive your department and other departments within Mercer County and throughout the state have been, and how receptive they are. And I think that's the hesitancy with some autistic families, that they think perhaps, I really don't want to reach out to law enforcement. I don't know how receptive they'll be to my, trying to connect with them or explain to them about my child. So we need to get all of this information out so that people know that law enforcement is ready, willing, and able, that they're trained, that they have the awareness, that they have these amazing programs like the SAFE program, like Blue Envelope, like your decal. And there are so many other programs, that autism-friendly practices, which we encourage the adoption of throughout the state through our law enforcement initiative, and one which I'm a huge fan of, which can really piggyback off of the Blue Envelope, is mock or simulated motor vehicle stops.
Okay.
So there are a number of departments throughout the state who run these events, usually on a Saturday. And what they will do is, it's kind of a two-part event. They have a setting, like a classroom setting for autism self-advocates, drivers, their families, to come in and sort of get an explanation about motor vehicle rules, what a motor vehicle stop will look like, and they make it a very friendly, welcoming environment. It's a PowerPoint presentation, but there's also refreshments there. So it allows drivers and families to ask questions in advance about, what should I do if we had one self-advocate who thought that when he's pulled over by at a motor vehicle stop, that he should immediately exit the vehicle.
Okay.
So really,
see, that's their thinking, right? Somebody think that, anyone. That's what's amazing.
And so we've stressed no, stay in the car.
Yes.
And law enforcement on these safe traffic stop days stress that. And then part 2 of that day is actually going out on a course to simulate a motor vehicle stop. And sometimes departments will use the Blue Envelope, work the Blue Envelope into that motor vehicle stop. So the driver gets to hear what it sounds like for the lights and sirens, be able to self-soothe and adjust to that so that it's not something new, and then see what it's like to be approached sometimes on both sides of your vehicle, which can be disconcerting.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And understand like what an officer may ask you during that stop, what the officer is looking for. And again, we advise them to follow instructions, and then they, in the motor vehicle stop, the simulated one, they will turn over the blue envelope, so they get the feel of what it's like for the first time to turn over that blue envelope in a simulated situation, and it really releases the anxiety and decreases hopefully some fears that they may have in a real life scenario.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'd love to set one up in our agency. Would you like to come out for that? And
absolutely.
we'll kind of do a little joint venture and get it going.
Love to do that.
Right.
I'm a big fan of these programs, and I think
I think that would be great to do for us, and I think it would be very beneficial for our officers, to get that hands-on training as well as other individuals. We had a gentleman and his son come out years ago. They did training in autism spectrum disorder. His son has it. They do a video. They have a whole video series where they talk about it. They go to different law enforcement agencies, and they have him, and his name escapes me right now. I don't have enough coffee in me yet.
It's early.
And he was talking just how his son himself explained to us so clearly what the issues were. And one of the things he was doing was, for him, his vision was very restrictive. And so his dad stood behind him and started putting his fingers out next to him and started moving his fingers in and said, "Let me know when you can see my fingers." And he kept going. And he almost came to about here. And he was like, "Okay." So, for us, it was very eye-opening, because if your field of view and you're in a car and it's here, I'm always at the pillar for safety purposes, right? So if I'm here, he can't see me.
Right.
So now I'm blind to that individual unless they, completely turn in my direction, which sets off red flags.
Absolutely.
So again, fantastic information. I would love to set these up, and so I think it would be very cool for us to do. So we're going to have to do that.
You can count on Autism New Jersey. We always encourage the expansion, implementation of
awesome.
any autism-friendly practice that's going to make, again, interactions safer, more positive. We also, I know you and I had, earlier spoken about the seatbelt covers.
Yes.
So incredibly important for an occupant who is on the spectrum to have a seatbelt cover. And some of the departments have already implemented this, where it actually says right on the cover, "I have autism, I may resist."
Right.
Or "I have autism, I am nonverbal." It could be a variety. It really depends on what the feedback from the autism community is as to what they feel is most important to have on that seatbelt cover. And that, when you think about it, is not just important for motor vehicle stops, right? So again, the officer can see that, and it's very brightly colored. Again, an immediate visual cue that, okay, this is not someone who is behaving in a way that is creating danger, but rather because of the fact that they are on the spectrum. It's also really important in a situation where, what if a neurotypical driver becomes incapacitated? What if there's a motor vehicle accident and the autistic occupant is someone who may, really have a meltdown, have a bad reaction, may elope from the vehicle or try to elope, and the officer misinterprets it as something else. So first responders, police, when they get to that, situation where the driver's incapacitated, again, immediate visual cue that, okay, passenger, again, this is going to require a different, more patient approach.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah, I know we are working on that as well. I will get you more information on that once we're moving forward.
Fabulous.
One of the other things we had talked about with the sticker with the SAFE program
Yes.
is this is also on our website. And West Windsor SAFE basically is secure awareness for first encounter registry. So you can actually register your individual who, whatever special needs they may have, you can register them with the police department. So what does that do? It allows our officers that when we make contact at your residence, we'll get a flag that will pop up that will show they're registered in the SAFE program.
Yes.
So it'll show us what the individual looks like, and most importantly, medical concerns. How does he or she respond to stress? How does he or she communicate? All the things we talked about. Are there specific strategies to calm him and her? If I can tell you one piece of information that is extremely important, it's this one.
Yes.
Right? Because my job is, okay, they're very upset. How do I calm them down? You know, that's the goal.
Right.
You know, let's get them calm. But what do I need to do? You know, what soothing strategy do we have? What do we have that can help in that situation? And, you know, whatever it takes, this is a great resource. The school has worked well with us on this. So West Windsor Plainsboro school system has actually given certain nights during the year where they'll come in and they'll say, okay, we're going to have a meeting for West Windsor Safe. You can register right here at the meeting. They have laptops set up. We can register the program. They can print out the sheet. They can get it to us with the information, and we can put them and register them right then and there.
Yeah, so on two levels, we commend you. First for having that SAFE program, and I know a number of departments within Mercer County have that program. And here's again a situation where the municipal police departments were way ahead of the game in this regard. Yeah. They wanted to create these special needs registries, and I know registry sometimes is a term that has some negative connotations, but really what it is the sharing of critical life-saving information, right? Before law enforcement response, so that you have that red flag, right? Because someone has registered and provided you information about how someone's behavior may be. Please don't misinterpret it. What could be self-soothing, what will help de-escalate the situation, what their triggers may be. Mm-hmm. All of that can avoid a use of force incident or a situation escalating to the point of hands-on, right? So to get that information in advance is amazing. Again, the municipal departments way ahead of the game, which I think is fantastic. I know that a lot of the counties now, Mercer County being one of them, also uses a broader system, the Online Policing Solutions National Public Safety Alliance for Individuals with Disabilities, better known as NPSAID, which also assists, but I commend the departments for really being on top of this and having that local connection. Is so incredibly important. So commend you on that. And I also commend you and your department under your leadership for connecting so well and collaborating with the school system. We find that many of the parents in families of special needs individuals get their information from the schools, right? So it's the schools, it's the caregivers of aftercare, it's the special education teachers and the therapists within the school system who share critical programmatic information with the parents that will help them connect with law enforcement. So I think that's fantastic that they have a day set aside or an evening set aside to say, hey, here's how you can register for this program, and these are all of the benefits, and here's the decals, and here's more information about blue envelopes. So really kudos to you on that school collaboration.
No, the more we can do, the better off everyone's going to be involved with this. We really need to give everybody a chance. And like I said, we need to make things better. That's the goal of it all. But did you have a program that you were also talking about?
Yes. So I a bit about the law enforcement initiative. It was officially launched by Autism New Jersey in February of 2024, but there had been a great deal of legwork done before that. Okay. And very similar to your situation, Autism New Jersey's information services team were finding that they were receiving a lot of calls from parents of children with autism saying, my child's going to be about driving age. I'm concerned about motor vehicle stops. I'm concerned about, even if it weren't a motor vehicle stop, my child's interaction with law enforcement because, again, they saw national events, they saw certain things that were concerning to them. They did not want law enforcement to misinterpret their child's behavior. On the same token, we were getting calls from law enforcement, and this is so impressive. Law enforcement officers reaching out to us saying, hey, we have a special needs community, we have many members in our community with autism. How do we connect best with them? How do we, we want the training, we want practices that are going to make, our interactions with them better. So impressive that law enforcement was so proactive in that regard. So we're getting a surge of calls on both ends, and it was really just a logical next step to say, hey, let's launch a law enforcement initiative. And many kudos to our executive director, Suzanne Buchanan, who had this idea, along with another director in our office, Dr. Joe Novak. So they decided to launch this, and it is a multi-phase, multi-level program. We work on the local, county, and state levels, and we encourage adoption of the very autism-friendly practices that we discussed today, and many more.
Okay.
And there's no need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a number of law enforcement agencies like yourself that are engaging in these wonderful practices, and we'll get a call from another agency, say in way North Jersey, right? And they'll say, we really want to do blue envelope, we want to do a registry, we want to do decals or seatbelt covers. And so we connect them, we work with them. We have a wonderful program called Law Enforcement Autism Planning Sessions, where we one-on-one sit with an agency, a law enforcement agency, usually the chief, deputy chief, sometimes lieutenants and captains, and we get to know the department, get to know their community's needs, because every department's different, every community's different. And then we help work with them to implement some of these very programs. We share with them what other departments have done. So again, don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, of course.
It's been done. And what we're also really impressed with is our SAFE program. Sorry, we stole SAFE from you guys, but different.
We probably stole it from you at another time.
No, we stole it from you. I'll wholly admit it. Ours is a little different, though. It's supporting autism-friendly enforcement. So we've created a directory, and we reached out to law enforcement and said, across the state, any law enforcement officer who wants to be part of our directory based on the various autism-friendly practices, would you be willing to say blue envelope, mock pullovers? Would you be willing to be a resource for other officers should they need you? Because sometimes officers feel more comfortable reaching out for fellow law enforcement professionals, right? So that's just a hard reality. While we love to connect, and we do a great deal of connecting amongst and between law enforcement, schools, autism communities, programs, they also like to communicate amongst themselves. And we have a wonderful directory on our website of these law enforcement professionals who are willing to give of their time and say, hey, you're going to start a mock motor vehicle program or Project Safe Stop. We'll share with you our PowerPoint. We'll share with you our disclosure letters. We'll share with you how we advertised it for social media and other avenues, how we recruited, who we had on site for the mock motor vehicle stop. So again, no need to reinvent the wheel. I had a call from a sheriff's office recently, and they want to do mock motor vehicle stops. I hooked them up in a minute with the safe directory and with 2 chiefs and a captain, all from different departments, and right away they responded and said, here's all the materials you need. Good luck. We'll come and support you as well when you do have your events. So I commend law enforcement for being, no one feels that they over something. They are always willing to share their PowerPoints, their standard operating procedures, and their good advice.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, Doreen, this has been very interesting for me. I'm distracted now by all the ideas in my head. Like, okay, we need to do this. I want to do this. I want to do that. So I'm glad we had time to talk, but my day just didn't get any easier. It's a lot more good stuff we're going to be doing. So,
lots we can do, and a lot we can help you with and coordinate with you. We're always there to support law enforcement agencies, and we do have a pretty amazing publication that we're
Okay.
very, very proud of. This is the Autism Friendly Practices for Law Enforcement publication. We have mailed 5 copies to every law enforcement agency throughout the state, and we identify about 12 autism-friendly practices, some of which we spoke about today, and we encourage, many of the departments to adopt them. We've spotlighted real life scenarios and spotlighted certain departments that have really excelled in these areas.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see right here is the municipal registries, both countywide registries and that local flavor municipal registries, which could mean the difference again between a bad situation and a good interaction.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
sharing that information, particularly if you're responding to a home.
Is that Robbinsville?
It is.
That
So
is. They
our-
do an awesome job. They are
Yes.
always proactive with anything to do with autism.
Oh.
Fantastic.
They were actually the first department I met with in my position. I had the wonderful pleasure of meeting with retired Chief Mike Pulaski.
Okay.
Amazing individual, and Lieutenant
Yeah.
Tom Egan, both of whom are incredibly proactive and really committed to connecting with the autism community.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job with it. So, as you say, I'm going to steal as many ideas as I can off of them.
Absolutely.
Because we like to not, like you said, reinvent the wheel
No
in law
need.
enforcement. If somebody's doing it well, hi, thanks.
And just like you, look at everything
Yeah, we're more than
West
happy to
Windsor
share.
is doing. So I know you're more than happy to share as well. So the more awareness we can get out there for both the law enforcement and the autism community is important. And I would stress that we frequently do get guidance, not just from our law enforcement professionals who sit on our law enforcement advisory committee, but we always connect with the autism community to get feedback from them. Because if you're going to institute an initiative to help a particular community, it's so important to get their input and their feedback. So that's always been paramount in our minds.
That's awesome. Well, Doreen, thank you for everything.
Thank
This has been
you.
awesome. Hopefully we can get this information out to everybody. Like I said, I'll have all the links and pictures that we can get out there
That's
and put it
fabulous.
together. We are trying to put together this podcast with some new software, see if it works correctly. So you're going to see some moving around.
That's quite all
I
right.
moved the camera around while we were talking, so anybody that saw that, I hope I didn't make you motion sick. But I really think it's about, we do this because we want to help build the trust between law enforcement and the community. We know it's there. You and I see it every day.
Yes.
I want the community to see it. So we can also branch off of this. I'd love to actually videotape the segment when we start doing the mock car stops. I think it'd be great for those
That's
parents
fantastic.
willing to allow it to be videotaped to see what it's like, so that if we do it in the future, they can feel comfortable, or other people who are not so thrilled might want to be comfortable about it. So I think it would be great. Fantastic. So this
we're
was
100%
awesome.
here to support you. So.
Yeah, and we spent the morning having coffee, and we were talking about our dogs
Yes.
and our different dogs. So that was a lot of fun.
Love my dogs,
So-
absolutely.
So I am going to close this out, and
Thank
if anybody
you.
has any questions, they can reach out to me anytime at garfo@westwindsorpolice.com, and I will put that on the information as well, and we'll get this cranked out and out to everyone. So
Fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome.